We've got Bobby Morton from Unite, the union which represents public transport workers, who's in the Wirral. Thanks very much. I'm glad we held on to get to chat to you. I'm not sure how much of the report you saw, but there is obviously a concern amongst drivers, amongst those working in public transport, about their safety. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing on a daily basis about the concerns. I was going to say good morning to you, and then I realised it may well be a good morning for you and I, but it's certainly not for the thousands of drivers who are facing this virus today, and the numerous drivers who are lying in intensive care beds awaiting their fate. I hear about this on an hourly, daily basis, 7 days a week. It's a dreadful scenario.
We've heard of the tragic death of 14 public transport workers. I wanted to check my notes because I do not want to get that wrong, and that includes 9 bus drivers. And you're saying that you know of numerous drivers who are in intensive care. How many is numerous?
I'm sorry, I'm not able to give that figure. It's happening on a rolling basis. As I talk, the figure changes.
Are you talking about dozens? Are you talking about scores? Because whether you can give an accurate figure or not, it's important, and here's an opportunity to show if there really is a neglect of bus drivers, of public transport workers.
Well, I can show that there is a neglect. I mean, the 14 deaths that you've already quoted is evidence of the things that aren't happening in the industry. And when I say what's not happening, the drivers particularly are not being given adequate protection. The people that were talking to you before are terrified of going to work of a morning because they're being put at risk by having to handle cash that can contaminate not only them but the loved ones when they get home after a shift as well.
What's the answer? Let's break this down then. Let's pick up on going cashless. How would that work in practice if there are simply people who don't have contactless cards or the equipment isn't in place? In London, that is in place, but obviously there's the rest of the country to consider as well. So how would that work in practice?
Let me tell you how it would work in practice and give you an example. In Northern Ireland, there's a company, a public-owned company, I'll make that point, called TransLink, who have banned all cash payments on buses. And I was going to say we've got happy drivers. They're not happy, but they're very, very relieved that when they go out to work in the morning, they do know that they are adequately protected with PPE, and they don't have to handle this cash, which could very well transfer the germs into the hands.
So how quickly could that be put into practice?
Sorry?
How quickly could that be put into practice in the rest of the country? What you're saying is happening in Northern Ireland?
I've been working with the bus operators now. I started pleading with them to do this a week and a half ago. I'm not pleading now, I'm demanding. And I went to the Confederation of Passenger Transport on Tuesday because I knew they were meeting ministers on Wednesday, and asked them to put it to the ministers. You can just stop it at the drop of a hat. Now, the Confederation had plenty of sympathy, told me they would raise it with the ministers and come back to me Wednesday afternoon. It's Thursday now, I'm still waiting for that call.
So if they did say yes, how quickly could that be put in practice?
It's Thursday morning now. You could do it by Thursday afternoon.
OK, so immediately then. We've seen measures in London being introduced. There's this trial, isn't there, to stop passengers using the front door to avoid any contact or contagion, I suppose, with the driver, so using the rear doors or middle doors. How could that work, if it could, across the country with other services?
Well, I have to make the point that here we are, how many weeks into this crazy situation are we? And now we're having a trial. It beggars belief. I agree that people should, where there's a middle door on the bus, people should enter that way. There should be reduced passengers on the buses. We need to do everything we can to eradicate the virus or to eradicate the risk. And unfortunately, I'm hearing pious remarks from bus operators that we're trying to reduce the risk. I don't want the risk to be reduced. I want the risk to be eradicated before anyone else dies.
What does this look like? Tell me what a bus journey, a day in a bus driver's working day, what does that look like from the moment that bus driver steps onto the bus, into the cab? What does that bus driver need to know has happened with the vehicle and will happen in the process of having passengers on and off the vehicle?
Well, okay, let me describe a bus as a monster, and I don't mean it in the wrong way. I'm talking size-wise now. These are monsters on the road. The first thing that a driver needs when he or she reports for the shift is to have a clear mind, not to be worrying about what might happen to them and their loved ones later on in the day. And I have so many descriptions of bus drivers. They need to be psychiatrists when they're dealing with the public. They need to be accountants when they're dealing with thousands of pounds a day. They have to be health and safety experts when they're looking after the health and safety of up to 80 passengers. That's a driver's life, and I could go on for hours. I could tell you that they don't have toilet facilities or any of the things that you and I take for granted.
I suppose, Bobby Morton, what I was also trying to get at is, what does a bus driver need to know is in place in order, and you said, obviously, a clear mind is absolutely paramount. For example, should the bus have been disinfected with a certain chemical or certain spray? Should there be certain rules in place for them to have a clear mind?
Yes, there should be. The answer to your question is what a driver needs is to know that he or she is healthy and safe, and that their well-being is looked after when they're performing this very, very, very important duty. They are key workers, and I know for a fact that they're ferry and NHS workers and other key workers all around the country. They need to know that they're safe when they're doing that.
Bobby Morton, Unite National Officer for Passenger Transport, thank you very much for your time with us this morning.
Thank you.
Time now